Chapter 7. An hour later, they had their bags checked and packed along with hot dogs. His usual diet of canned food and fresh goods would be long gone for the time being. After making sure he had a good meal, she set their bags by the door so they could quickly grab them before going out with Hot Dog onto the patio. The streets were worse than before, something she'd anticipated. No shop front was left untouched. Up and down the road, shattered glass dusted the sidewalk. People were fighting in the streets over scraps as the sun slowly moved below the towering buildings surrounding them. She turned back to Hot Dog, who had since finished his business and was now staring at the front door across the living room and kitchen. Her stomach rolled when his low growl started deep in his chest. Someone was out there. She swallowed and moved slowly into the penthouse, quietly sliding the glass patio door closed behind her, as the hair on Hot Dog's back stood on end. He moved next to her slowly, the growl growling louder with each step until it caught Harley's attention where she was sitting at the kitchen island. Tasha's fingers darted to her lips, silently telling Harley to remain quiet as the pair continued their approach to the door. When they were within feet of the door, she could hear hushed voices bickering on the other side. Tasha took a deep breath and looked through the peephole in the door. Instantly, she recognized the man in his early 40s and the dark-haired boy who was barely a teenager. Tasha let out a sigh of relief and started to unlock the door. Hot Dog understood they were friendlies at once and jogged a few feet away to wait for the newcomers. When the door opened, both men looked stunned, but Tasha smiled warmly at the pair. Right away, Hot Dog's booming bark started, making all three jump as she invited them in. "Mr. Karu, Dylan, how are you guys holding up?" Tasha asked. The young man went to Hot Dog and started petting him. Hot Dog rolled onto his stomach and lavished the attention. Tasha knew he was working his magic on the young man, soothing all the boy's worries with every adoring tail wag. Mr. Karu shook his head. "Shiva is frightened. The baby only has formula for a few more days. Have you heard anything?" Tasha shook her head. "Not beyond knowing there was a strike that started on the West Coast. Shiva and the baby, are they back in your apartment?" He nodded, but she could see the fear in his eyes. The family had only been in the country for a few years. Mr. Karu had worked as a diplomat of some sort for his government, but she knew they were actively seeking permanent residence. Tasha had gone as far as writing a letter of recommendation for them with the immigration agency. Of all the people in the building, she knew the family was better equipped than most to live without the luxuries of the New York loft apartments. "We are trying to be proactive. Most of the people here were at work when it hit. You are the only one we've seen come back on this floor. A few on the others. We need formula and some other things. But we have much to trade as well. You know how fond I am of American cuisine. We've got a stockpile of—" "Mr. Karu, stop," Tasha said. He did so, the room growing tense as they all waited for her to speak. "We're leaving," she said. "Harley, my assistant there, has family she needs to get to in West Virginia, and I need to get back to the homestead. You should come with us. Staying here isn't safe." The man shook his head vigorously. "No, for you it might be safer to leave, and if we could, we too would go, but where? This land is not yet our home. We have no one. We barely speak fluent English, and the people, they are already angry. They are angry at the world, and a passive man with a newborn and young boy is no place for us. We will stay, but perhaps before you go we might barter." "There's no need," Tasha said. The decision had already been made in her mind. Go back to your apartment, gather everything you can and bring it here. Bring Mrs. Karu and the baby as well. This is your home now. He gasped. "Tasha, we could never." "But you must, sir. With all due respect, my apartment is far better equipped than yours. There is a stockpile of food and extra locks on the doors. We have everything we need already packed. Go get your family. We will help you get settled. I've got 4 cans of formula in the pantry, something my mother always said to keep on hand for its nutritional value in an emergency. That will be enough to wean her over to milk." Tears had already sprung into the man's eyes as he fought to keep control of himself. She knew it was hard for a man in his faith to show such emotion in the presence of people outside his family. She didn't know how to break the awkward silence. Thankfully, Harley was quick to clear her throat, and every eye turned to her as she hopped off the bar stool and strolled over. "Come on, I'll help you get packed. That way Tasha can show the missus all the bells and whistles of this place before we leave," Harley said. Mr. Karu quickly nodded, a heartfelt smile on his lips as his son rose and followed them out of her apartment. Tasha watched them from the hall, giving Hot Dog a simple command and watching him bound after them. It was an easy cue that she was now grateful she'd taught the smart creature. With 2 hand signals, she'd trained him to follow her personal assistant and keep watch over her. Hot Dog was always reluctant to leave Tasha, but he listened without hesitation. With the family's apartment door opened across the hall, Tasha watched Mr. Karu tell his wife about Tasha's offer. The woman's hand flew to her chest as she started to cry, wrapping her arms around her husband, obviously overwhelmed by the wonderful news. Right away, there was a flurry of motion, and before she had time to process anything, Tasha was walking around her apartment with baby Arya in her arms. It was amazing to watch how quickly Shiva moved, directing her husband, son, and Harley with one hand and unloading things with the other. Tasha felt a weight lifted off her shoulders as she showed the couple around the apartment once they finished moving everything they needed. It was overwhelming when she presented them with the stocked pantry, enough food and water to see their family through for several months to come. She gave them as many pointers as possible, while pulling a dozen books on survival from her office bookshelves. The hours passed by quickly, until the sun finally started to set. Tasha wanted to cook one last meal in the apartment before they left. As the women worked in the kitchen, and the men cut down their old dressers and furniture for firewood to survive the cold, she tried not to let the moment be bittersweet. Everything her parents and Elijah had taught her would now be used to save another family's lives. She knew they would be safest there, but some dangers were impossible to stop. They had to be warned about the men. "Shiva," Tasha started. "When we got in before, there was a group of men lingering outside." "Oh, you don't need to worry about that," she said confidently. Tasha paused. "What do you mean?" "When the men were out scouting, they saw them trying to break into one of the apartments on the first floor. They used tactics from our country to drive them away before adding locks to the back door and the front." She cringed. "Tactics?" Shiva shrugged. "Many things can burn skin without setting a fire. You Americans give children guns to play with? Little water guns, yes? Well, those can hold more than just water. A little bleach, a little salt in a paintball gun. Things can get very painful quickly." Her jaw dropped, but it was Harley who spoke. "Holy crap, so you guys are like real badasses. That's awesome. Are you sure you don't want to come with us?" Harley asked. The woman chuckled. "In my country, you fight or you die. There is no compromise. Tasha has given us a chance to survive, and I will defend this place, her home and now ours, with my life." Tasha smiled at the woman. She knew the woman was telling her the truth. It was hard to think of people better suited to take over her home. As they finished the meal, prepared largely on the grill and consisting of a fresh salad, they set the table as the sun started to set. The group sat down to enjoy one final meal before the real challenge started. Chapter 8. The meal was strange, with a combination of things from the fridge that wouldn't last long with the power out. Still, it was deliciously prepared. Tasha wanted to stuff herself, but knew they had a long trek ahead of them. They needed to be alert and light on their feet. It was well after dark when the meal ended, and Dylan jumped up to clear the dishes away. She'd quickly become fond of the young man and his natural curiosity. At the mention of the night vision goggles she had, he'd become fascinated with the technology. They were stored in a custom box, an alloy laced with gold and copper, a Faraday cage of sorts. It had protected the night goggles. While they'd been invented for the military decades before, they proved too costly to be of much use to the government. The trio of boxes had been a gift from Elijah on her 21st birthday. Tasha was once again grateful for the unique upbringing she'd had. With the night came new sounds, though, ones no one could ignore. Gunshots and the mutters of roving gangs filtered through the silence. "How I wish we had some music," Shiva whispered. "It always does us so good to hear a bit of gospel." Tasha smiled, but it was weak. "It's probably best to keep quiet anyhow. That way, you're careful not to attract too much attention. You'll want to lay low as much as possible." "Ah," Shiva muttered. Again, a stark silence filled the room. Tasha hated to be the one to break up the joy, but she wanted the family to be prepared. All it would take was one afternoon of noise. They were going to be targeted at some point, simply for surviving, but at least Tasha could prepare them somewhat in the meantime. "So, you said you're heading for West Virginia first?" Mr. Karu asked. Tasha nodded. "We'll get to Harley's parents' place first. From there, I'll go on ahead to Kentucky. I'm guessing the trip will take about 15 days, stopping over in West Virginia for a few days to settle then." "Is it safe for you to travel alone after you leave Harley?" Shiva asked. She cringed. "I won't be alone. I'll have Hot Dog with me. I can move quickly and quietly, though. I'm not worried about it." "You might not be, but I bet your godfather is a mess," Shiva replied. "I know. I haven't been out there in months either. Now I feel really bad about it. The faster we can get there, the better I'll feel. Speaking of which, we should probably get moving soon. I want to be out of the city long before the sun starts rising." "Already?" Harley whispered. Tasha smiled sympathetically at her. "Harley, you know we would have to leave as soon as it got dark. We need the night for cover." "Are you sure we can't just stay here?" Harley asked. "You can, if you'd like, but your parents aren't going to just leave you behind, you know that, right? If you don't go to them, they'll come looking for you." "Maybe that would be better. Your parents are in good shape. I'm sure your dad has guns." "No," Harley stammered. "No, they can't come here. This place is hell. Just listen to them out there. My father would find a sheet for the dead man on the road, and my mother would try to stop the people from looting. We have to go to them." "And the safest time for us to do that is now," Tasha said, "before the roving gangs get comfortable in the dark. We've got night vision goggles, but I promise we won't be the only ones out there with them." Tasha knew it was time to leave. The longer they waited, the better the odds were that they'd run into someone come the early morning hours. She already had a destination in the hills picked out for their first camp, but it was a good hike with heavy packs. Getting up from the table, she called Hot Dog and started fitting his pack. He was excited and made the process nearly impossible. As a very active breed, the hours inside were driving him nuts, despite the abundance of company. Harley rose slowly and followed suit with Mr. Karu, lifting her pack and helping her to put it on. Tasha was worried about the weight of it atop the woman's slight frame, but she'd already removed everything she could. If they took anything else out, they'd risk going hungry or dying from exposure as the weather worsened. She'd taken into account the quickly dropping temperatures. They had to make good time. After finishing with Hot Dog's pack, she slipped on her own. While tightening the strap across her torso, she noticed Harley's trembling hands and stepped over to help her. Of course, the woman was terrified. Tasha couldn't blame her. Even as the others watched in silence, the distant sound of gunshots could be heard through the glass of their patio doors. There was no time to think of what might happen, not if she wanted to keep up the courage to go. Staying put wasn't safe, not for any of them, but she couldn't force the others to leave. "Tell me it's going to be okay," Harley whispered. "Everything is going to be fine. We've got this. If you want to be out there with anyone, it's a person who's trained for this sort of situation, right?" "Right," Harley muttered. "That's all fine in theory, but this is the real deal." "I know, and we're going to make it through," Tasha promised. "Just stay close to me, okay? Look, this rope here is 4 feet long. It's tied to my bag. Hang on to it the entire time and you'll never lose me." Harley nodded, but said nothing, as Tasha turned back to the trio standing near the kitchen table. With baby Arya fast asleep in the other room, Tasha knew slumber would not come so easily to the other 3. Glancing back at Harley, she saw tears streaming down the young woman's face as Shiva stepped forward and embraced her. Tasha drew a ragged breath, reminding herself to stay strong, as she called Hot Dog and clipped his leash to his harness. "You two be safe out there, okay?" Shiva whispered to them. I don't know how, but we will see you again when this is all over. We'll make up a real meal. How does that sound?" "That sounds nice. It gives us something to look forward to," Tasha replied. "Thank you, guys." "No, you do not need to thank us," Shiva said. "It is we who are indebted to you. This place is a sanctuary for us. We will never forget how generous you've been. Mr. Karut will go with you to unlock the doors and lock them once you've gone." "Just keep your family safe. That's all I ask in return," Tasha replied. She looked back at the others one last time before reaching the door. Shiva pulled Harley into her arms for one final embrace. Her stomach was in knots. Glancing out into the hall, she saw there was no one there. The apartment complex had been nearly silent, and now Tasha knew why. Mr. Karut and his son had made sure no one could get in or out. They moved quickly and quietly through the halls, with Tasha leading the way. Hot Dog was silent next to her, sensing the tension in the air, and not stopping for his regular sniffs as they moved down the steps. Every once in a while, when they passed a door, his ears would flicker, alerting her to the presence of a tenant, hiding on the other side. One flight of steps after another, they moved closer to the ground floor, until finally, they reached the ground level. There were 2 ways out, the dark alley or the main doors. Tasha grabbed Mr. Karut's arm when he reached for the door leading to the main lobby. She shook her head and pulled the night vision goggles over her eyes. They jumped to life, and her heart sank. Chapter 9. There was a group of men lingering right outside the glass doors. Immediately, she made note of 3 guns strung across a few of the members' backs, but she knew there would be more. The glass was fractured in several places, but seemed to be holding beyond that. With tenants who were diplomats, movie stars, and famous writers, the glass was designed with the same strength as the president's windows. They wouldn't be getting through anytime soon without a tank. Still, they were blocking their exit. There was no clear line of sight from the back door, making it just as dangerous. "What are we going to do? Should we wait until tomorrow?" Harley whispered. Every day we wait, we run the risk of not making it out of the city at all, Tasha muttered. We need a distraction. I can go back to the apartment and dump something on them, shoot them up with acid like the ones before, Mr. Karu offered. No, we don't want to start a war with these men. Letting them know you have weapons is a bad idea. Remember, you guys need to lay low and go unnoticed. I could go to the back doors and create a distraction to lure them away. Yes, that's it. I confiscated some firecrackers from Dylan earlier in the day. He found them in the hall. I believe they were dropped by another child here, but that will bring them out. And you could get back in before they ever made it over there, Tasha said. That's perfect. Do you think you'll have enough time to get back here and lock the front doors before they return? If there is even the slightest risk to your family's safety, then I don't want you to do it. He shook his head vigorously. I assure you, this is a trip I can make in under 120 seconds. Dylan and I, we timed it earlier in case we needed to make a quick escape. Now it seems that knowledge is fruitful to have. All right, you said it takes about 2 minutes to get back there, right? We will wait here until we see them leave, then head out, Tasha said. Wait, what about the locks on the doors? Do we need keys? Harley asked. No, I have the keys here. Leave them near the locks and I'll find them once you leave. Be safe, my friends, Mr. Karu whispered. On that final note, he nodded once more before disappearing down the dark hallway. Right away, Tasha was worried about their new friend. There were a dozen things that could go wrong. If the group was organized enough to have sentries, they might stop him before he even got the back door closed. If watching the man and his family interact had shown Tasha anything, it was that he would protect his family at all costs. She drew a ragged breath as they waited in silence for the sound of the firecrackers in the distance. She tried to keep track of how much time had passed in her head, but kept getting distracted, not only by the men outside, but by Harley and Hot Dog as well. They were constantly moving behind her, her heightened senses picking up every subtle little motion in the midst of the tension. There was nothing she could do unless she told them both to freeze, which would work for all 10 seconds. Instead, Tasha ground her teeth and focused on the men gathered outside. Seconds later, she heard the fireworks starting to go off around the back of the building. Instantly, the cluster of men darted in the direction of the sounds. Tasha raced out the door, followed by Hot Dog and Harley, holding his leash. She worked each of the locks with precision and speed. Less than 30 seconds after they heard the fireworks go off, the trio was racing across the road for the shadows of the alley. Tasha paused, pulling the other two against the wall behind her as she watched Mr. Karu move carefully to the front doors and lock them again. He was gone before the group of men started to meander back to the front of the building, none the wiser that they'd been played. She let out a sigh of relief. The moment was short-lived, though. They had to keep moving. Staying still was dangerous. She took Hot Dog's leash from Harley, not because she didn't trust the woman to keep watch over him, but because they needed Hot Dog's keen sense to keep them alive. She kept track of time by checking road signs as they crossed one road after another. The smart beast at her side did what she knew he would and gave a low growl each time a stranger's scent reached him. From the homeless hiding behind dumpsters to scared locals trying to survive, Hot Dog knew before they did when someone was nearby. After 3 hours of moving at a good pace, Tasha could hear Harley's labored breathing behind her. Pulling the laminated map out of her back pocket, she crouched behind a car that had plowed into a brick building. Harley quietly collapsed against the wall next to her, struggling to catch her breath. Hang on just a few more minutes longer. We can take cover under the Longway Bridge. It's about a 1/4 mile up, Tasha whispered. Jesus, we've made it that far? Harley stammered. It's amazing what you can do when you're running on fear and adrenaline. We won't be able to stop long, 10 minutes tops. If we stay much longer than that, all that energy you're burning right now will putter to a stop, and we'll lose all the time we've gained moving so quickly." Harley looked like she was ready to pass out, but to the girl's credit, she didn't protest. She nodded and rose, despite the obvious discomfort it caused her. Tasha made a mental note to tell Harley how great she was doing when they could talk openly. Giving the pair behind her a quick signal, she scanned the area as they moved from their hiding spot. Every step she took was carefully calculated. Even if it added a few extra steps, Tasha moved around glass, broken furniture, electronics, and shell casings, anything that might make noise. They avoided at all costs. As soon as the bridge came into view, Hot Dog was on high alert. She saw the homeless fires burning, but didn't see the people camped out beneath them yet. Tasha trusted Hot Dog, though, and slowed their pace. While she had no problem sharing the space with those simply looking for shelter, she wouldn't risk their lives trying to force the stop. Suddenly, there was movement under the bridge, and she halted their advance. Her heart raced as she watched a young girl, no older than 13 or 14, emerge to warm her body by the fire. Relief coursed through her. The young woman looked around nervously. It was obvious from the defensive way she carried herself that she wasn't new to life on the streets. Tasha signaled for Harley and Hot Dog to stay where they were before she moved forward, removing her night vision and giving herself a minute to adjust to the darkness before the girl heard her approaching. Immediately, she was on the defensive, pulling out a crowbar with trembling hands, as Tasha lifted her hands to show she was unarmed. "Hi there," Tasha said quietly. "Do you live here?" The girl nodded. "Yeah, and I've got a gun too, so keep moving." "If you have a gun, why are you pointing a crowbar at me?" Tasha asked. "Because I don't want the whole town to know I'm here. Now, like I said, keep moving." "We're just passing through and need to catch our breath. Would you mind if we did so here? Listen, I've got a few things I can leave with you if you'd let us." "No," she growled. "I told you, keep moving, all of you." "It's just the two of us, me and my assistant, Harley. We don't mean to cause any trouble." "Then keep moving like I said," she muttered. Tasha sighed, glancing back at the others even though she couldn't see them in the darkness. She wasn't going to push the young woman. She was obviously terrified. Tasha slowly stepped away, not turning her back on the woman until she knew she was hidden by the night again. Only then did she turn and put the goggles back on. Harley looked excited to take a break, but when she saw Tasha's expression, the smile faded. They would have to keep moving and hope their fatigue didn't make them reckless. Chapter 10. Their pace slowed considerably after the disappointment of not being able to stop. Tasha hated that she was pushing Harley so hard. Each time she turned to check on her assistant, she found Hot Dog right next to her, pulling her forward and giving her every last ounce of emotional support he had. She didn't know what she'd do without the loyal pooch. He was her best friend, without question. At the 5-hour mark, they reached the highway crossing that marked the city's edge and the start of the freeways that ran in circles around the city. She didn't want to think about how exposed they would be. It was the only way out to the forest beyond, but the trek down the highway would take an hour. Going below to where the massive pillars met Mother Nature was an even greater risk. With the goggles, she could see groups of people below, making their territory and keeping out others. They made it halfway across the interstate, moving with a surprising speed, until she heard Harley curse behind her, before stumbling and falling. She'd tripped on something, but Tasha didn't know what until a crescendo of small glass balls cascaded over the edge of the bridge, plinking and echoing off every surface as they went. She cringed and dropped to the ground, pulling Hot Dog down with her and holding Harley against the road as she did. The marbles, it seemed, had come from a wrecked car. Tasha didn't want to think about where the child who owned them was now. Hopefully they'd found shelter before the chaos started. But a quick glance at the out-of-state plates gave her almost no hope. Tasha heard commotion under them and held her breath. The groups beneath them might not make a move if they thought it was nothing more than a stray animal. An idea came to her. "Hot dog, warn," she commanded in a whisper. The dog's menacing growl and bark made Harley jump, but she didn't move beyond that. Tasha knew the girl's ears had to be ringing from the sudden boom of noise, but she stayed put. Tasha gave him the hand signal to stop, and the bridge fell silent again. She could only hope the groups below believed the noise was nothing more than a rogue dog looking for an easy meal. Moving slowly, she rose to her knees and started to crawl forward, motioning for Hot Dog to stay low along with Harley. They moved a few inches at a time. The marbles left behind, but still moving on all fours. She had to ensure they were clear before getting back on their feet. Tasha knew once they did, they wouldn't be able to walk at a quick pace any longer. They would need to sprint for the woods, in case Hot Dog's decoy bark didn't work and the people below made their way up to the tops of the interstates. She paused and waited for Harley to catch up, before quietly whispering to the woman, "We're going to have to get up and run for the end of the bridge, okay? I know you're tired, but it's the safest route we've got at this point," Tasha said. Harley cringed. "I don't know if I can run. This pack weighs a ton. Can't we stop for just a few minutes? I need a little break." "There isn't time to take a break. We need to get to the woods before people get brave and venture up here. The sun is going to start coming up at any moment. We can't be here when it does." "Please, Tasha, just a few minutes," Harley pleaded. It broke her heart to be harsh with her assistant. But circumstances had changed. They no longer had the luxury of extra time. Tasha sighed and shook her head. The only way she would keep them safe was if they got off the bridge. "Fine, take off your pack," Tasha growled. "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to carry it for you. I don't think you understand the situation we are in, Harley. Do you think a group of angry men finds us? They will just steal our gear and let us go? No, there is no law now. Nothing is stopping them from killing Hot Dog and taking us both in any way they want." "I get it," Harley growled. I can carry my own weight." "Are you sure about that? Because we need to move right now, and if you can't handle it, I need to know this instant." Harley glared at her before jumping to her feet and running in the direction of the forest. As impressed as Tasha was with the woman's motivation, she instantly worried that she'd get sloppy and trip on something. Leaping to her feet, Tasha and Hot Dog raced after their scared companion. Her keen senses alerted her to the change in Hot Dog before he warned her with his growl. They were being followed, though carelessly, from behind. She had to get to Harley before they reached the forest. Whoever was chasing them could have more men following behind. If they were outnumbered, their only chance was to hide and hope the group passed them. Within half a minute, she caught up to Harley and passed her, grabbing her arm and jerking her off to the right as soon as they cleared the interstate. Harley grunted in pain as Tasha scoped out a location. A covering of trees and brush made for the perfect hiding spot. Grabbing her two companions, they ducked beneath the shrubs and motioned for them to stay absolutely silent. The sound of racing footsteps drew closer as she tried to see how many there were. When the person pursuing them finally appeared among the stalled cars, Tasha gasped. It wasn't the group of angry men she'd expected, but the girl from beneath the bridge they'd run into earlier in the evening. She looked utterly terrified, and Tasha could understand why. near the halfway point on the bridge, was a cluster of men wielding bats and bottles of booze. Obviously, the men were drunk and looking for a good time, but the young girl wasn't trying to comply. She was frantic as she searched for cover. But thankfully, Tasha had something that they didn't: the goggles. "Don't move," she hissed. Darting out of hiding, she raced to the girl, getting within a few feet before the woman realized someone was close to her. Tasha knew the men were inching closer. She couldn't risk the girl giving away the other's location. She grabbed hold of the girl, one gloved hand moving over her mouth to keep her from screaming. As Tasha dragged her away from the main road as quickly as she could, while the others moved closer. She had to get the woman to stop struggling. For such a small girl, she put up one hell of a fight. "Please, stop struggling, or you're going to lead them right to us. I'm not going to hurt you, but I won't let you expose my friends either," Tasha whispered. The girl hesitated, but continued to fight against Tasha's grip. "If I have to choke you out to keep you silent, I will," Tasha growled. The girl stopped struggling, but Tasha kept her hand around her waist until she was crouched again behind the brush with Hot Dog and Harley. Hot Dog recognized her as a terrified innocent and lavished her with comforting kisses, burrowing deep into her arms despite the girl's obvious terror. There was no time to make introductions as Tasha watched the group approach. The man who seemed to be in charge gave instructions for them to fan out. She knew they wouldn't venture too far. Already several of them were stumbling near the edge of the forest. "We need to move farther into the woods," Tasha whispered. "Harley, take." "Gwen, my name is Gwen. Who are you people?" the girl asked quietly. "Take Gwen and Hot Dog. Move quietly and quickly. Watch your footing. Do you see that old shelter house about 100 yards back?" Harley spun and nodded, focusing her goggles on the structure, barely visible even with the technology. The drunk group of men would never find it in the dark. "Get behind it, inside it if you can, but whatever you do, don't make any noise. Listen to Hot Dog. He'll alert you to anyone coming," Tasha whispered. Despite the nod of understanding from Harley, Tasha knew the woman wasn't happy about leaving Tasha behind, but she didn't argue. She had to be there to make sure the others got away before Tasha could join them. Otherwise, the group might keep pursuing them deeper into the forest, a move that could prove deadly for the foursome. Chapter 11. By the time the other three had moved around to the back of the shelter house, the group of men was scanning the woods, just a few feet from where Tasha was still crouched. She was thankful the trio had reached safety, but knew they'd still be in danger if she didn't make it out of there. To her, violence was always a last resort. Doing her best not to move, Tasha watched one of the men step within inches of where she was crouched. For a split second, she was sure he had spotted her. But then the drunken man braced himself against a tree. She heard the telltale sound of his pants being unzipped before a pungent stream of streaming urine started to flow down the tree, a foot to her left. Tasha ground her teeth and held her breath, counting the seconds in her head before the man finished and turned back around, nearly stumbling backward onto her before bellowing out that his zone was clear. She was thankful the others had gone, though. At such a close distance, the man would have seen Hot Dog. He wasn't a delicate creature by any means. As the group started to move farther to the south and away from where she was hiding, Tasha crept quietly from her hiding spot in the direction of the shelter house. She kept her position close to the ground, low. Hot Dog was the first to greet her when she gave a low whistle. He bounded around the corner, letting the other two know it was a friendly approaching. When she found the two women huddled on the other side, one with a crowbar and one with a stick, Tasha felt a wave of relief. It was good to see the girl was still with Harley. She didn't seem as frightened as before, but Tasha could tell the girl was ready to bolt at the first sign of trouble. We need to keep moving, at least get a mile or so away from the city. It's all woods from here, though, so we can take a little more time, Tasha whispered. Who are you people? The girl demanded. How do you have those goggles? Everything is down. It's a long story, one we don't have time for, Tasha quickly said. Right now I need to know if you are coming with us or not. The girl hesitated. Tasha swallowed, trying to suppress her fear. If the young woman opted to stay and not go with them, Tasha knew she would die. It didn't matter how street smart she was. The numbers weren't on her side. Every second they stood there was dangerous. At any point, the men could circle back, and worse, they could have sobered up some and be ready for a fight. Where are you going? The girl asked. West, Tasha said quickly, before Harley could answer. The girl was still a stranger. They didn't know anything about her. If she decided to stay and was captured by someone else, Tasha couldn't have her using the location of a prepper-ready pair to secure her freedom later on. Okay, the girl stammered. Okay, let's go. I'm Tamara, by the way. Sorry about the bridge thing. Water under the bridge, Tasha whispered. I'm Tasha. This is Harley and Hot Dog. We're going to move quickly and quietly in a single file line. Harley, you take the rear while Hot Dog and I take point. Tamara, you just stay between us. As an afterthought, she handed the girl the end of the rope hooked to her backpack. It would be hard to navigate through the dark woods, but hopefully, between the other two having the night vision and Tamara hanging onto the rope, they wouldn't be in the area for long. Wrapping Hot Dog's leash around her hand, she pulled out the map and compass. Giving them a quick glance, Tasha set out toward the West Virginia homestead they were heading for. The woods were bustling with wildlife. While it wasn't unusual given the lush surroundings, it seemed more vocal, given the dead silence of the world otherwise. It wasn't something she'd ever paid much attention to before then, at least since she'd moved to the city. They crested the top of a small hill 30 minutes later. Tasha paused and pulled off the goggles as the sun started to rise. She looked back over the city she loved, wondering if she'd ever see it again. They hadn't heard anyone else in the area since leaving the shelter house behind. Tasha let out a tense breath. I think we're in the clear, she said. Thank God, Harley replied. I don't know how much more I've got in me. Tasha grinned back at them. We can set up camp at the bottom of the mountain there. You see that stream? It's the perfect water source. We can take turns keeping watch and get a few hours of sleep before we set out again. How much farther are we going? Tamara asked. We've got a 5-day hike ahead of us. Once we're further into the woods, we will be able to set up camp at night and hike during the day. But for now, I don't want to risk it. We are still dangerously close to the city. I imagine within the next 24 hours, these woods will be crawling with people fleeing the violence. Jesus, Tamara stammered. Who the heck are you, lady? Tasha chuckled. Harley cleared her throat. You are a lucky girl, my friend. We happen to be traveling with one of the best preppers out there. She's a published author, journalist, survivalist, and all-around badass. Ha, Tasha blurted out. Don't listen to her. Hot Dog is the real hero here. I just like camping is all. Let's walk and talk. I don't want to stop moving just yet. The group started down the slope. She scanned the area several times before stopping and letting Hot Dog off the leash. The pooch bounded forward before she yelled out for him to stay close, and he quickly curbed his excitement to a 20-foot radius of the trio of women. She wanted to believe his dedication and intelligence were purely out of affection, but he'd been trained by some of the greatest trainers in the country. Hot Dog had a job to do, and he took it seriously. Still, when he glanced back at her with his goofy smile, Tasha couldn't help but chuckle. "I know you," Tamra gasped. "You're that activist who wrote that book about being ready for the next world way, right?" Tasha cringed as they reached a small clearing by the creek. She hated that people saw her as an activist. Her only goal had been to enlighten the masses, something she'd hoped she'd accomplished in some part before the EMP had struck. Tasha had to focus. She couldn't think about the devastation the attacks had caused across the nation. It was far too overwhelming after the ordeal they'd just survived. Harley immediately took off her pack and collapsed on the ground, exhausted. "I know a thing or two about surviving. I can teach you if you'd like," Tasha said as she slid off her pack. "Really? That would be great. How do you know where to go? Wasn't everything electronic fried when that shit happened?" Tamra asked. "It was. But the compass isn't electronic. I can use it and the map to get us to a general location. From there, we have to look for landmarks to keep us on the right path. For instance, I know by this time tomorrow we will be crossing into Shawnee. If we aren't, then I steered us wrong somewhere." "How do you know we're in the right place now?" Tasha pulled out the map and pointed to their location, clearly visible beneath the mountain and marked Shelter House. Tamra was fascinated with the map, and Tasha left it with her as she started to pull out the supplies they'd need for the next few hours. Harley saw her starting and quickly followed suit. As Hot Dog kept watch over Tamra and Harley, Tasha took their 4 canteens and filled them with water. When she returned, she fished out the straws and quickly explained to Tamra its use before rolling out one blanket as a pad, laying the second over it for a blanket, and setting up her pack as a pillow. "You two need to get some sleep. I'll take the first watch," Tasha said. "I can stay up," Tamra offered. Tasha shook her head. "Thanks, but I'd feel better if it was me for now." Tamra chuckled. "You don't trust me?" "No, not yet," Tasha muttered. "I hope that'll change, but for now." "We're still strangers passing in the night, I get it," Tamra said. "Thanks for being honest with me." "Anytime. Now get some sleep. We've still got a long way to go." Chapter 12. Tasha gave the 2 girls 3 hours before rousing Harley. She had no intention of dozing off, but as soon as her head hit the girl's pack, she was asleep. It was a strange rest, though, not one that echoed completely through her body. Hot Dog's rhythmic snoring next to her helped keep Tasha in the lull. She'd been asleep no more than an hour when his body tensed, snapping her out of her sleep immediately. She bolted upright, scanning the area, until she saw what Hot Dog had seen. 50 yards away from where they had set up camp, she saw people moving quietly through the forest. The migration was already starting. Cursing under her breath, she rose to her knees and glanced at Harley. She was already moving to wake up Tamra, as quietly as possible. Tasha rolled up their blankets and repacked the bags, while Harley whispered to Tamra. Within minutes of spotting the newcomers, they were wading through the shallow creek in the direction of Harley's parents' place. While she hadn't gotten a good look at whoever it was in the forest with them, Tasha planned on treating everyone she didn't know as a threat. The group didn't stop again, despite the whispered complaints she heard from the 2 behind her for several hours. After 3 houses and 10 miles, she finally let them rest. It was barely 2 in the afternoon, and Tasha wanted to cover another 10 before they made camp for the night. "We're miles outside the city. I don't know how much longer I can go," Tamra said. "I'm sorry, but staying here isn't an option. I wish that strike had hit at night, and we'd have a jump start on everyone, but as it stands, we don't know how many thousands of people will be moving through these woods." "Don't you think that's a bit extreme?" Tamra asked skeptically. "Not in the least. It's what we are doing, and it's what I told all of my readers to do as well." Not these woods in particular, but getting out of the city and making it as far away from the cities as you possibly can. If anyone listened to me, then we need to keep going. Not everyone will be able to move at our pace, but you better believe some will. Listen, I'm used to running for my life on the streets, but I don't think anyone could keep up with us, not even marathon runners, Tamra muttered. Tasha smiled and handed her a protein bar from her bag. I know this sucks, but tonight we'll have a real meal, set up camp, and get some sleep. The young girl sighed and rolled her eyes, but muttered a thank you as she took the bar and started to eat. Tasha sat down and scanned the area again, her watchful gaze keeping an eye on any dangers that might appear. Hot Dog did the same, though he appeared relaxed as the two girls stroked him and filled his bowl with purified water. The dog was having the time of his life, and she knew it. After a few more minutes, Tasha stood and started putting her pack back on. The others groaned, but didn't protest as they followed suit. Hours later, just as the sun started to set, Tasha found the perfect place for them to set up camp. She knew the others were exhausted, and in earnest, she felt it herself too. It was good to see the two getting along as they worked. Both had listened raptly as she gave them instructions. Having Tamra with them changed things a little. They wouldn't be able to set up two separate tents with the extra blankets. Instead, she fashioned a slanted roof between 4 trees, while the girls gathered firewood and dried leaves. Using 1 blanket, and most of their rope for the roof, it left 3 for them to sleep with. Tasha next went about setting up a fire ring, and spit for dinner and warmth. Before long, the others had the area beneath the blanket packed with leaves for bedding, and a decent mound of firewood to get them through the night. With 4 mouths to feed now, Tasha knew she would need to start hunting at some point. But for the night, they would share the MREs. The 2 women sat around the fire and looked at her expectantly. I promise we'll light it, just give it a few more minutes. I don't want to be sending smoke signals out there. Once we get it burning, we need to keep it small and keep the embers going, Tasha said. Do you really think people are lurking around here? Harley asked. We can never be too careful. It keeps us alive. And that's just about the only thing I care about right now, Tasha said. You know, I didn't really get the chance to thank you for helping me, Tamra said. Don't. I would have done it for anyone. I'm happy you're safe now. Do you have any family back in the city or anywhere else? Tasha asked. She shook her head. No, I worked my way through the foster system after my mom died of an OD when I was 6. Never knew my own man. That's awful, Harley muttered. How old are you? 14. I was with a few foster families who really made life hell. After that, I took off. I planned on getting the hell out of the city, but, well, the country is a big place. I hadn't picked where to go just yet. That's okay, Harley said. Now you've got a place to go and people to be with. Harley is right, Tamra said. You're welcome to stay with us for as long as you'd like. Who knows, maybe you'll find a place that feels like home on the journey. But if not, you're welcome at the homestead with us. With you, Harley corrected. I'm not leaving my parents' place. They're set up for this sort of thing. Are you sure about that? Tasha asked. It might be best if we get them and all 3 of you come to the homestead with me. Harley shook her head. No, Mom and Pops will have it all set up and ready for us when we get there. You'll see. You both will. They're waiting for me there. I just know it. Okay, Tasha quickly said. She didn't want to get Harley worked up. There was no need. Well, she didn't know the elderly couple's ability to fend for themselves. People would get desperate, which meant they were in danger. As they watched the sun set the rest of the way beyond the horizon, Tasha pulled out a box of matches and lit the fire. Its warmth made her feel the fatigue she'd pushed to the back of her mind for almost 36 hours straight. There was still more to do before she could sleep. Tasha wanted to ensure the other three were well fed and ready for the next day's trek. She planned on pushing them harder, not only in the morning but for the rest of the trip. She didn't take the help with setting up dinner when the girls offered, nor did she wake Hot Dog when she snared a hare 20 feet outside the camp. The trio had fallen into a rhythmic routine as the girls talked about their lives with each other. She knew they were trying their best to make a terrible situation enjoyable, and there was no chance in hell Tasha was going to break it up to heap food and skin a rabbit. Plus, it gave her a chance to patrol the area without worrying them. Her mind drifted to Elijah as she skinned the rabbit and added the meat to the boiling stew. The girls didn't notice, not that either would have minded if they did. It was clear Tasha knew best for the group, but she still doubted herself. They were all three counting on her to keep them alive. She felt the pressure of that task, weighing on her shoulders as she draped the small piece of fur over the fire to quickly cure. It didn't take long after the meal was served for all three women to doze off beneath the makeshift shelter. Tasha knew Hot Dog would keep them safe, but she still didn't fall into a deep sleep. With the exception of Hot Dog, no one had ever counted on her before. She knew no matter what, Elijah would always love her. He could take care of himself, but Harley and Tamra couldn't. Her stomach rolled as she listened to them breathing on either side of her. She silently said a prayer that she was up for the task.